Hello and welcome to this week's Granny's Garden. Now this week it is all about this tree you can see here behind me. It is all about how to take care of and how to get the best harvest out of your fig tree, the Ficus Carica. The first thing we're going to have a look at is where. Where do I plant my fig tree? Well, this plant is a native of the Middle East, so that's going to give you a good indication that this plant likes to be in full sun. It also hates to be in cold wind. Now if you see here, this is planted with a cypress hedge on one side. There's a tool shed here on the other side. So it's like tucked into a nice little corner. It's been protected from the cold wind on two sides, and it's also on the south side of the property. So it's in a nice area. Now fig trees do really well in containers, and that's for two reasons. First of all, if you live in a cold country or that has got very harsh winters, or in an area of the country that's got very hard winters, all you've got to do is pick it up, wheel it into an unheated greenhouse. I state unheated, you don't need to mollycoddle it that much, and let it overwinter in there, just giving it some extra protection against those very cold frosts and very cold winds. The second reason is that a lot of people swear that the best fruit comes from fig trees that are contained, that are either in containers or the roots are contained in some manner. Now this tree behind me gives 2 harvests a year and incredible amount of fruit. And I'm just going to tilt the camera down for a minute. In actual fact, I'll duck down myself as well. In actual fact, if I get out of the way, you'll see that it is in actual fact contained inside a raised bed. Now this raised bed is no more than 3 feet wide, and the roots are certainly contained, so they can't go wild and go anywhere they want. But this tree gives the most incredible fruit, and it gives it twice a year. However, having said that, although it does great in containers, if it is planted in the ground like this one, it's a lot harder than you think. This tree can survive -7 degrees Celsius in the winter. Now we get -5 on a regular basis for weeks and weeks on end, and occasionally it plummets to -12. Now if I see that it's going to plummet to -12, I'll come out and I'll just wrap it in a little bit of harvest guard. It is a great shade tree, and it's got a huge canopy, ginormous leaves, which gives a beautiful shade, particularly in this hot country. It gives us shelter and it gives us food, so for me it gets an A+. Now if I pull back, you can just see like a square shape here, which actually coincides with this square shape here, because in actual fact this shed was pushed up against that tree, and we had to pull it out of the way the other day because we found out there was no lower branches growing like this from the centre, because it simply wasn't getting enough light. If left unchecked, this tree will go between 20 to 30 feet high and 20 to 30 foot wide. You can obviously through pruning keep it in check, but it is best left unpruned. Now I'm just going to show you a young leaf here. It's got this like hand shape with the little lobes on it, and it's got a nice dark green foliage. It's like a leather, but it's not smooth. Just listen to this. It's actually quite rough. It's almost like sandpaper. Now this is a small leaf. It's already the size of my hand. But if I pan up to the top, I can't reach there. They're about 10 inches long, the large leaves. They're absolutely massive. And because they're tight packed on the tree, it's why it gives such great shade. Given the right condition, this tree can crop twice a year. The first crop, known as BREVAS, ripen in May. The second crop ripens from August onwards. There comes a certain time in autumn when they stop ripening, and at the end of each little shoot there's a little pea-like fig that won't ripen this year. It'll stay the whole of the winter on the tree, and that is what becomes that first crop of BREVAS come May or June next year. It's the unripened figs that haven't ripened this year. So what does my fig tree not like? Well, there's basically only 3 things. 1, it doesn't like being waterlogged. 2, it doesn't like cold winds. And 3, it doesn't like acid soils. Everything else is not too pushed about. But those are the 3 main things. If you want to keep it happy, just keep them in mind. Next thing you need to know is fertilizing. Well, at the beginning of spring, you put an all-purpose slow release fertilizer just around the base. As usual, don't touch the trunk. Just put it around the base. And then with the rains of spring, it'll gradually percolate in and give that first feed to the tree as it's leafing out. The next time you fertilize is when the actual fruits start forming and as they ripen. Now what I do is about every 2 weeks, all through that growing season, I give them a tomato fertilizer, and it works wonders. Now the next thing is water. Now this is a very misunderstood concept. This tree is from a hot country and it is drought resistant, and it certainly is drought resistant once it's established. But that doesn't mean the tree doesn't need water. If you want fruit, you've got to give it water, and it has to be water at the correct time. So during these really, really hot months, you have to give it water if you want fruit. If not, the tree is going to go into drought mode, and that means it'll stop producing fruit, or the fruit it has will not get very big, and even if it gets even worse, then it'll start dropping the fruit onto the ground and eventually even dropping the leaves onto the ground. So the tree won't die, but you're certainly not going to have a harvest. Now, the next thing I need to talk about is pruning. Now, I have to give a word of caution here. I have never had any problems, and no one I know has had any problems, but I have to actually say it. The sap of the fig tree can give you phytophotodermatitis. Now, phyto from plant, photo from light, and dermatitis, inflammation of the skin. The actual sap, when it first made contact with the skin, you just wipe it off and you think, well, that didn't irritate me, no damage done. But a few hours later, you might suddenly start to get a burning sensation, and it's because it's reacted with the ultraviolet light of the daytime of the sun. And in certain cases, it can get so bad, you can actually get a 2nd-degree burn. There are two main areas where the sap is particularly bad. One is the actual roots, which you're not really going to touch, and the other is the leaves. And pruning, for me, is always done when the tree is dormant and it's got no leaves, so there should be no problem. As with any tree or plant or shrub that has got problems with sap, my advice is always start from the bottom going up. If you start from the top, you might find that you make a cut and maybe there's a slight possibility that the sap might drip downwards. If you start from the bottom, that's not going to happen. However, having said that, the fig tree hardly needs any pruning at all. You always have the DDDs. If it's dead, if it's damaged, or if it's diseased, it's best to chop it off, and always wear gloves just to be on the safe side. This tree also has a tendency to get some sprouts and suckers towards the base of the plant. It's not very prolific, it's nothing like the olive tree, for example, but if you see here, there are just a few little suckers coming up. There's one here you can see also there on a short stalk. Now, I have got my gloves on, because we are near the root of the tree and we are talking about a leaf. This is going to be dead easy. It's just literally to clip it off here at the base, and then we'll just get in here. It's got a slightly longer stalk, and we'll just again clip it at the base. And just remove those two leaves, and I am going to dispose of those carefully just in case any of the dogs get it. Now ideally this should be bird netting, but I don't have any, so this harvest guard is going to work absolutely fine. The light does penetrate and the fruit underneath is going to ripen. Now although it doesn't cover it all, it's not really necessary. Birds need to actually pose on the branches to be able to pick at the fruit, and the birds are not really into getting underneath somewhere where they can feel trapped. So I think I'm good on this. Now regarding when you actually pluck the fruit from the tree, this is a very, very personal matter. Some people like it to be deep, dark purple, and it's almost like oozing a honey-like liquid out of it. And that's a little bit overripe for me. So again, personal choice. The tree is yours. Pluck it every day until you find the exact amount of ripeness that you personally like. So I'm going to get one off the tree. That's the way I like it. And we'll just cut it open and see how it looks. Now this one's almost ripe, but not just quite. You usually just get a little bead of like honey dripping out when you can start picking it. Ah, perfect. You see coming out of the centre is like a little drip of honey sweet liquid. And if I push it, you can see that that's quite and nice and soft. So I'm just going to do now is take it with my hand. It's going to give it a nice twist, and it comes off easily. Absolutely delicious, and the skin doesn't go to waste either. Lilybin, what's that? Oh, do you want a whole one? Do you want one of these? Yeah. Good girl. I told you all the ladies liked figs in this house. I suppose a fitting place to finish this video is sitting under the shade of my fig tree, which is what it was meant for. And certainly if I do want to have a little snack, I don't have very far to go. I just pluck it off the tree. If you have liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And of course, if you want to join me every Friday, just subscribe to the channel. For me, Una, and for my channel, Granny's Garden, for this week, it's bye from now, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye now.